Hello viewers, welcome back to our YouTube channel. If you are new here, please hit the subscribe button and be a part of our family. The best sci-fi movies on Netflix right now. Your entertainment guide, movie.
You go where I go, and I go where you go.
189 days into your solo journey.
I just want to come home.
Aliens promo line infamously states that in space, no one can hear you scream. Spaceman isn't a horror film, so there's not much suspense about whether astronaut Jakub Prochaska, Adam Sandler, will survive. But since Jakub is alone in deep space, no one can hear or see just how badly he is being consumed by his loneliness, his inner turmoil, and his failing marriage to Lenka Prochaska, Carey Mulligan. No one except Heinous, Paul Dano, an alien spider that Jakub encounters on his journey. Heinous sees and knows everything in Jakub's mind, often to the detriment of Jakub himself. Reliving painful memories isn't something Jakub wants, and yet he's so desperate for any kind of companionship that the prospect of Heinous leaving him behind is absolutely devastating to him.
Commander Prochaska, how are you feeling?
– 2022's Oscar winner for Best Picture, Everything Everywhere All at Once, is simultaneously a sci-fi fantasy adventure and a relationship drama. Evelyn Kwan Wong, Michelle Yeoh, used to have a happy life, but now her husband, Waymond Wong, Kuhui Kwan, is on the verge of leaving her. Their daughter, Joy Wong, Stephanie Su, barely speaks to them, and now the IRS is auditing their business. That's when another version of Waymond from across the multiverse takes over his body and warns Evelyn about a threat that could destroy everything. To save all of reality, Evelyn has to learn how to navigate the multiverse and also repair her relationships with the people whom she loves.
What's happening?
Murder's a messy business in Looper, and that's why the future is sending its dirty work back in time. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is a contract killer known as a Looper because he kills targets sent to the present on behalf of criminals from the future. At the end of his contract, Joe is supposed to murder his older self to close the loop on his life. Old Joe, Bruce Willis, has other ideas when it's his turn to be sent back. After overpowering the younger Joe and changing the timeline, old Joe begins looking for a kid who will grow up to be a feared crime boss. But thanks to old Joe's actions, Joe becomes a target in the present and his future is no longer in his control.
This isn't just a game.
Whoever controls the virtual world of Oasis controls the future in Ready Player One. In this timeline, Earth is in such rough shape that the vast majority of the population spends all of their time in the Oasis living out their virtual dreams. That's not what James Halliday, Mark Rylance, had in mind when he created Oasis. Years after Halliday's death, Wade Watts, Ty Sheridan, and players around the world learn that Halliday left behind a contest for complete control of Oasis to the winner who can solve all of his puzzles. It's a race that extends to the real world as well, because there are no lengths that IOI executive Nolan Sorrento, Ben Mendelsohn, won't go through to ensure that his company controls Oasis.
Are you willing to fight?
Help us save the Oasis.
We're coming back! We're coming back!
In between James Bond movies, Daniel Craig headlined a comic book movie that no one realized was from a comic book, Cowboys Aliens. This film shares so little in common with the comic that spawned it that it's more of its own thing than an adaptation. Craig plays Jake Lonergan, a man who is clearly suffering from the after effects of an alien abduction the first time we meet him. Of course, the alien weapon attached to Jake's arm is also a dead giveaway. Whatever Jake went through wiped his identity, and he has no idea who he was or how he managed to anger Colonel Dollarhide, Harrison Ford. But there's not enough time for Jake to figure it out before aliens arrive in force, and old rivals will have to team up to save the world.
Why are you asking me?
I am a child of war.
Zack Snyder's space opera, Rebel Moon, Part 1, A Child of Fire, should be familiar to fans of Star Wars and other sci-fi epics. It takes place in a universe that is ruled by Mother World and its intergalactic army, the Imperium. Cora, Sophia Boutella, an ex-member of the Imperium, sought to redeem herself by starting a new life out of Motherworld's reach on a moon called Velt. When the Imperium finally arrives on Velt, Cora can't run anymore. To defend her adopted homeworld, Cora recruits a former Imperium general, Titus Jiminhunsu, as well as Kai, Charlie Hunnam, Gunnar, Mikhail Husman, Tarak, Stas Nair, Nemesis, Duna Bay, and more. But even this assortment of warriors may not be enough to withstand a full assault by the Imperium.
I'm here to make you an offer. To give you a chance at redemption.
We are beyond redemption.
What about revenge?
Shit! Boy, this motherfucker did. Okay, we ain't got no time for no negativity. Go give me some goddamn wet nip. Excuse me, kind sir, but if you could pour me to the elevator that leads down to the freaky laboratory.
Very early on in They Clone Tyrone, a drug dealer named Fontaine, John Boyega, is brutally murdered in front of one of his clients, Slick Charles, Fox, and one of his Slick's girls, Yo-Yo, Teona Paris. But much to the surprise of Slick Charles and Yo-Yo, Fontaine shows up the next day without any memory of what happened to him. While investigating the mystery of Fontaine's apparent resurrection, the trio uncover a clone conspiracy that has very troubling implications for their lives and their future. And if they want to save themselves, Fontaine, Slick Charles, and Yo-Yo need to fight back.
Trying to figure out what has happened.
I see this shit fucked up. They out here cloning this. What the fuck going on in this bitch?
That's right, that is the prevailing theory.
'65 doesn't try to hide its sci-fi premise. It's about a pilot named Mills, Adam Driver, a man who accepts a long-term gig as a pilot to provide for his family. But when his starship crash lands on Earth 65 million years ago, Mills is left with no way to reunite with his wife, Navine, Chloe Coleman, and their daughter, Alia, Nika King. The only thing that gives Mills the will to live is Koa, Ariana Greenblatt, a young girl who is the only other survivor. When Mills discovers a potential escape from prehistoric Earth, he escorts Koa across a landscape that is filled with very ravenous and very dangerous dinosaurs.
Succes Nova, you got this.
Laat me raden. Jij komt ons redden.
Captain Nova, Aniek Pfeiffer, has come from the future to save the past in the Dutch sci-fi movie that shares her name. Unfortunately, for Nova, the trip back in time has also changed her into a 12-year-old child. And young Nova, Kika van de Vijver, soon realizes that her mission is now nearly impossible because of this unforeseen side effect. With few other viable options, Nova teams up with a kid named Naz, Maroyan Mefta, as she attempts to rewrite the future by taking on a greedy corporation. And if Nova fails, her future is destined to unfold in the same way that it did before.
Opwarming van de aarde is dan niet meer te houden.
We're at war. You're not safe here.
MCG's Rim of the World takes its inspiration from the kid-centric sci-fi films that Steven Spielberg produced and directed in the 1980s. At the Rim of the World summer camp in California, Alex, Jack Gore, is a boy who is still grieving the loss of his father when he starts bonding with his fellow social rejects, Junjun, Mia Chek, Dariush, Benjamin Flores Jr., and Gabriel, Alessio Scalzato. Much to their collective surprise, Alex and his new friends discover that they are in the midst of an alien invasion. And they may be the only ones left who can deliver the key to victory to NASA. If they can live long enough to escape.
I can't drive a stick.
This is it!